Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Destination 2030. It's all about Athens. My name is Tim Fairhurst from ETOA, and I'm joined by a fabulous panel who we will introduce shortly. We'll just give people a short while to join the webinar, and then we'll start with the introductions. Thank you for joining us. Well, the numbers are building in quite quickly, so I'll just quickly invite my panel to introduce themselves, starting with Alexia and Vangelis, then Yanis, Jeremy and Sina, and then we will start with the presentation from Athens. So Alexia.
Hello, this is Alexia Panagiotopoulou. It is great to be here with you. I'm the head of strategy of the Athens Development Destination Management Agency, and we're here with our CEO to present what we're doing for a better future in tourism and for our city.
Vangelis.
Hello, I'm Vangelis Vlachos. I'm the CEO of the Athens Development and Destination Management Agency. I'm very pleased to be here among extinguished speakers and panelists. And I'd like to personally thank the team for giving us the opportunity to showcase Athens' strategy and moreover about the very useful conversations we had the opportunity to share the past months. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Yanis.
Yes, hello, good morning from Athens. I'm Yanis Papas. I'm representing Global Sustainable Tourism Council. I am director from the area here in Mediterranean, and I'm glad to contribute to this very informative, very interesting actually webinar about Athens. Thank you very much.
Jeremy.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending where you are. I'm Jeremy Sampson. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Travel Foundation, a nonprofit based in the UK but working globally, and also the chair of the Future of Tourism Coalition, of which Athens is one of our signatories. So really pleased to be here for this discussion.
That's great. And last but not least, Sina.
Hi everyone, my name is Sina Jongastel. I am founding partner of Group Now, a strategy agency working out of Copenhagen with transformation in the visitor and experience economy. And I have a history in the DMO of Copenhagen.
That's great. Thank you, everyone. Now, before we start, if I could just draw the attendees' attention to a couple of functions. During the course of our discussion, we might launch a poll, which is a series of questions to invite some participation and opinion from you, our excellent audience. There is also a functionality where you can ask questions, and we'll monitor those through the day. If we don't get to your question, we will certainly look at it afterwards because they're all recorded. So please provide whatever detail you wish. If you would like us to address the question during the session, please keep it short because it makes it much quicker to read when we're operating live. So thank you very much for joining us. And to begin, we're going to start with a presentation from Vangelis on Athens itself. So Aaron, my colleague in the background, is going to launch the presentation. And so we'll start off with an introduction and a reminder of a nice sunny day in Athens. Over to you, Vangelis.
Thank you. Okay, yes, this slide, thank you. I would like to take only 30 seconds to showcase what Athens has to offer. 4 millennia of recorded history, world-famous sites, 2 UNESCO marvels, outdoor cinemas, ancient stone theaters, cultural events, rooftop bars, a 50-kilometer coastline of 20 blue flag beaches and 11 marinas, a mountainous terrain of stunning natural landscapes, famous Greek islands nearby Athens, lush vineyards and adventure activities are all just a short sail or drive away. Athens is a year-round destination with mild temperature and abundant sunshine, with the statistics you can see at the 4th circle on the right. And not to forget to mention that the infrastructure and meeting capacity for the MICE industry has raised Athens, according to ICA, to the 17th place in the world. Next slide, please. Thank you. Our long-term vision. All of our tools for tourism start with a safe, accessible, and sustainable destination for all without exclusions. Number two, to treat the destination holistically, we're serving the ancient topos, which means place. Number three, the pandemic showed the importance of tourism, not only to boost the local economies, but also in terms of using to form better cities. Number four, the idea of a circular economy offers new ways to create a more sustainable and economic growth model where it's easier for resources to be recycled, where our skills and knowledge are utilized effectively, and the benefits of tourism are distributed fairly and not outweighed by the costs. Next slide, please. Our aims to reach our strategic vision. The visitors' economy should be an integral part of the strategic development of the city. A great destination must be perceived as ideal first and foremost for its citizens. We aim for improvements to quality of life for our residents as the driving force of our tourist marketing. We believe that if people like to live in Athens, then people from around the world will want to visit Athens. We face an urgent need to work towards a circular economy, as mentioned before in our major visions. We are aiming to attract investments and talent in Athens. To ensure prosperity in companies, we need to invest in new, greener, more digital, more accessible solutions, but this will require partnership and collaboration. For these reasons, we seek to attract investments and bring best practices into the ecosystem. Next slide, please. Thank you. Our tools for the implementation of our aims that serve our vision. We are building collaborations with the private sector through the public-private partnerships to jointly design and implement projects that contribute to social, business, and urban development, and to successfully promote Athens as a year-round destination for a city break and MICE tourism. This is Athens. The official visitor guide is also a very significant tool for us to product diversification that help us to expand the visitors map of the city. We need to boost innovation, to help business competitiveness grow, and support entrepreneurship. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry, no, we need to stick to the previous one. Thank you. I'd like to highlight that we are trying to create a sustainable tourism observatory that will collaborate with local universities and global partners. We'll have the opportunity to talk more about it and all of the rest later on. And finally, the partnership we're creating to operate the Sustainable Tourism Observatory will generate opportunities for students to train to become leaders in research and policy making. Now we can proceed to the next slide. The challenges we are facing to disseminate the potential of tourism in all local ecosystems. It is important to convey the message that tourism should be not considered as a stricto sensu, but to connect all the sectors of the local economy that are connected with the tourism industry, to involve and boost the cooperation of all the stakeholders in all levels of strategic planning and implementation, to urge the tourism ecosystem to change and become more sustainable while trying to boost diversification, and to seek for long-term prosperity rather than short-term gain. After 1 year in lockdown, most of the cities' enterprises have been hit by the financial crisis, and it will take probably a couple of years for them to rebound. So talking about long-term investments is not necessarily their top priority. We need to prove them that short-term gain will not guarantee the viability in future, but only by working together we can go a step further and succeed. Next slide, please. A few things about our PPP best practices that I would like to showcase. This is Athens and Partners, a partnership that brings together major stakeholders from businesses and institutions to work in concert and strengthen the city's position as a destination for year-round travelers. The Athens Partnership, which is a non-governmental organization supported by the City of Athens, and facilitates collaboration between the private and public sector as well as the community partners. Adopt Your City, an initiative taken by the City of Athens too, that offers a straightforward way for citizens to respond to calls for participation, either that has to do with social inclusion or even with public works or intervention in local neighborhoods. Co-Athens, a framework for refugees who have received asylum to collaborate with other residents, citizens' initiatives, and local authorities in the design and implementation of urban interventions. Synathina, a tool to identify, support, and facilitate the work of informal citizen groups engaged in improving quality of life in their neighborhoods. And last but not least, our collaboration with GSTC. Together we will measure the sustainability achievements and will mobilize our network of stakeholders. Next slide, please. Some of the most remarkable cities achievements by the recent years. Athens was awarded as a European Capital of Innovation for 2018, as an UNESCO World Book Capital for 2018 as well. As mentioned before, it is ranked among the 22 destinations, 17th actually, I like to tell it, in the world for international conference. And the World Health Organization noted that the municipality and its partners were able to strengthen support to get essential supplies and health information to marginalized communities during the pandemic. It was very important for Athens to be praised by the WHO. And the CDP Europe Awards in 2020, for a second year in a row, the organization included Athens on its A series. Next slide, please. Thank you. Next steps we are already making or we are planning to make in the near future. We invest in historic business districts to help small businesses adapt to global pressures and to establish focal points for sustainable tourism. We are providing direct assistance to cultural organizations to help them rebound by the crisis provoked by COVID. To maximize the publics and mixed spaces. I can tell you, for instance, the initiative that the Athens Partnership is taking by converting vacant lots into pocket parks in order to make green space more accessible and to create cooling grids throughout the city. And we strengthen the ecosystem of the social and solidarity economy through activities that promote the development of skills and transfer of know-how. We can change the slide. Skills on Demand, a new initiative for the City of Athens that will be implemented by our agency, will be used to address the management and operation of training and certification flows as well as the promotion of the participation in quality employment for the unemployed, with emphasis to the participation of the social vulnerable groups. We are putting so much effort to upgrade This is Athens, the official guide of our city. We invest in digital transformation for visitor services, and we establish city and sector-wide measurement tools and database on global criteria, as the ISO mentioned, consider. Next slide. I hope I wasn't too boring. Just a peek to our promo campaign running by the time now we speak. It is a result of the cooperation mentioned above, mentioned later, mentioned before, This is Athens and Partners. We are sending love letters worldwide to keep the feeling alive and the perspective of visiting Athens again soon. Next slide, sorry. A treat for those of you who want to explore more about Athens, in case you hadn't already seen our podcast. It's one of the efforts we made to keep the interest of the destination alive while we have been on a lockdown, and I urge you to watch all the podcasts, and I will tell you that there is another series that will be published probably at the beginning of the next month. Thank you. The last slide, just my personal thought, my personal wish to see you all again and to meet and stop meeting and talking in digital windows. Thank you. I'm here to talk and analyze more about all the things mentioned in this short, I hope, presentation.
Angelis, thank you very much. That was a very comprehensive walk through what strikes me as a very comprehensive policy, and just as a background as to why we're talking about Athens today, which you've illustrated so well, is that tourism is in the heart of a much broader strategy for the city. It's not every destination or development agency that also talks about how to integrate refugees and talk about social inclusion. But the challenges from that to digitization to upgrading infrastructure is going to require funding. And we all know that COVID has put a huge stop on the visitor economy, as you have just said. It has also been a catalyst for very big strategic thinking at a European level, so that there will be funding for strategic investment, and the priority is surely to ensure that tourism is part of the national plans, because I think you've illustrated very well that it will be an engine for transformation. So it's not as reductive as saying tourism brings money. It's tourism actually changes the destination in a good way, done well. So I think it's that exploration that we're really going to make over the next 40 minutes or so. So what I'd like to do now is invite Alexia to add any reflections or wider context for the Athens presentation before we get into a wider discussion of what our panelists took from that presentation, anything in particular of interest, and then we might start asking the audience some polls. I can see there's one question already, but first, Alexia, over to you for any reflections or to complement Vangelis's presentation.
Well, actually, it's the important thing to highlight is the fact that the visitors' economy is an integral part of the city's economy. And in order to be able, what has happened with the pandemic is basically accelerating a need and a strategy that would have been implemented or would take maybe more time to. Now it's more evident for the local stakeholders as well that we need to go into a horizontal implementation of the strategy and to collaboration mode. Now it's important more than ever to promote collaboration. It's something that we discussed last week at ECM with Jeremy as well. It is vital to provide collaboration and to proceed with the tools that we have, or to create the tools to promote also this diversification of the product. It's really important, and we've discussed it in one of our discussions that we're having with Yanis, and we've had with you, Tim, as well, is how do we boost diversification of product in terms so that we tackle over tourism or overcrowded monuments, for example. It's basic, especially for Athens, to see how we can promote cultural heritage management. Now is the time. We've had discussion. I'm sorry, Tim.
So I was just going to take exactly that point, because I know that there are some things that the city has control over, and there's some things which are a national competence. And one of the things that is a geographical fact is that you have Piraeus as a port next door. So, you know, the Aegean is a very popular cruise destination. Athens would obviously like to have more home port cruise business, but how you can manage large groups of influx at once and how you can diversify that flow of people is a strategic challenge. And not all of the tools are within the hands of the city, because it may be that national museums have certain arrangements around pricing or capacity management and so on. This is really a question primarily for Alexia and Vangelis just to start with, but then I'd invite others to jump in. Where you come across opportunities to do things differently and it's not in the hands of the city, how easy are the conversations to have to say, we need to look at managing museums differently, we need to manage the flow during the day differently, we need to think about dynamic pricing. All of these sorts of discussions, are these part of the plan? So Alexia Vangelis first, and just to pick up, Christina Barzan, one of our attendees, asks what the specific plan is to boost diversity. So hopefully this will start to explore that question a little. Thanks for the question, Christina. So Alexia Vangelis, if you've got jump in, otherwise others.
Alexia will tell you more, but I have to fully agree with what you mentioned, Tim. It's a situation we need to handle, and we need to do it right from now on. And this needs to plan in a correct way, and to cooperate not only with the museums and the archaeological sites, but also with the city of Piraeus. And Alexia will tell you that we are already working with the city of Piraeus towards this direction.
Yeah, we have another question from Bridget, who asks, will the city let online booking for the sites and museums with time slots? And I think, Alexia, we've explored this. If only it were that easy, I think might be the answer, but would you like to comment further?
Yes, okay, first on the diversification issue and how we're going to handle overcrowded monuments, for example. What we're doing is we make sure to create the content. We have a very strong, this is Athens and this is Athens and Partners. Through this partnership, we have a very strong commitment to proving that there are other parts of the city, and we're involving other industries, such as the creative industries, for example, and we make sure to create products out of it. Tourism product that's also, that help us have high satisfaction rate for visitors, but for citizens as well. I mean, everyone knows Athens for its cultural heritage, but it's far more than that. So we have a great opportunity right now to use all these tools that we have, from local craftsmanship to outdoor experience to wider, I don't know, have theaters and movies and have so many products. And what we do is we create the need for this product to be to have. It means that We have our editors team who are scouting literally all neighborhoods of Athens and talk to people and talk to little shops and talk to little enterprises and small businesses. And we try to see what we can bring forth as a very good product for visitors and for our cities. So this way, instead of just coming to the Acropolis, which is a place where you will go anyways, if you like at some point in your life, come and look what's around the area, where you can make handmade Greek sandals. I'm just giving you an example of a local craftsman who's been there for like around a century and who can give you an insight that and such an experience and new thing that you wouldn't have it otherwise. So this is the part of the diversification, that we create the content and we make it's all about training as well. You know, you need to train with what we were saying, both your visitors and what you have to provide, and the local economy on what to create.
Exactly. And what I was wondering, and that we've got a poll which I will launch now about products and services, because I think it'll really explore this conversation. But if I'm listening to this conversation and I'm in industry, and I might be in America, I might be in Japan, I might be in Germany, how do I find out about someone who's making Greek sandals? You know, how does that information get to me, and how does that feed into the product development discussions that are going on? So to our audience, this is the first poll we're going to launch. Hopefully it's on your screen now. I'll read it out. Sectoral transition. A commercially viable future for tourism requires the development of more sustainable product and services. So you can agree or disagree with that. So if I'm in the business of selling holidays, what am I going to have to change? And is it a commercial fact that I will have to be more sustainable in order to continue trading 5 to 10 years from now? So please put in your answers over the next 5 to 10 seconds, and then I'll close the poll and we'll see if the panel is surprised. So I'm going to close the poll in 5 seconds. Get any more votes in you would like, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I'm going to close the poll now. So the answers are as follows. So there is no one disagreeing with the proposal. There's agreement and there's some strong agreement, roughly 50-50. So just as a conversation starter, Sina, does that result surprise you, or does that sort of line up with the kinds of conversations you're having and the sorts, and then maybe Jeremy next to share your reflections on that?
Well, short answer is it doesn't surprise me. I think most businesses understand and see a demand for more sustainable products. I think what I do see though is that it's not necessarily something that is acted upon immediately or with the urgency that we might feel it should be as a destination especially. And sometimes what does surprise me a little bit, I was just thinking about that also in when you made your last point, Alexia, that what surprises me sometimes is also we're asking if it's like, is it a commercial fact that it's, you know, by doing so it would be more commercially viable? But there are also things as a destination, for example, as a DMO, a marketing organization, that you can do to incentivize that, you know. So there are many influences on that aspect, like you see in Helsinki with their Think Sustainably platform, with products that, you know, if you are sustainable, if you deliver a more sustainable experience, product or service of some kind, you're rated higher, you're visible on their platform, whereas if you don't, you just lack visibility. So there's also that, you know, it's an important choice, I think, that we can support to make it a commercial fact. But no, the short answer is it doesn't surprise me. You're muted now, Tim.
You'd think a year into this, I'd have spotted the mute button by now. We've just had a question which I'll introduce because it's relevant to this. George asks us, or makes the observation, creating the content is fine. The question is, are there enough craftsmen to support the idea? And I suppose that gets at the issue of scalability as well. So there's always things that individuals who are curious can discover. What can be done that can be done at scale and incorporated into commercial planning? But Jeremy, any reflections on the poll result and the discussion so far? You're also muted. At least there's two of us getting it wrong. Thank you.
There we go. Many reflections, but I'll start with the poll since that's the topic at hand. I'm not surprised at all by the results. It seems to me, and I'm seeing this in lots of polls, consumer polls as well, consumer surveys as well. When you throw in the word sustainable, it's really easy for people to agree and to say yes. Who doesn't agree that they want things more sustainable? Of course they do. So for me, it's more important that we really define what do we actually mean by that. And I think that's also true when it comes to consumer trends, because there's been lots of polling over the years that say people prefer things to be sustainable. But what do we actually see people spending money on, and where are the trends going in that direction? So what we're seeing more and more there are people, if you dig in a little bit more to the definition of sustainability, we're seeing that people are starting to be increasingly concerned about impact on the climate, particularly when it comes to younger people, Gen Z, for example. They are requiring the companies and places that they support to have better practices. And everyone is looking for local, and we think that's a trend that will be accelerated by the pandemic, where everyone has supported more local businesses. There's been more awareness about the need to support and protect communities. So I think that the question and the terminology that we use really does matter. And then I think on the other hand, there is a concern certainly that with these accelerated trends for good practice and for local, that the supply may not be there to the extent that it needs to be. So I fully advocate for the need to help local businesses adapt, diversify, upskill, and understand how the market is shifting, so that we can really actually match the what is expected to be accelerated demand with the supply on the ground, and so that the experience really starts to match the expectations. I think this is going to be really important. Otherwise, we will start to tell a narrative in tourism that doesn't really match what people are experiencing.
Right, I think that's a strong challenge. We've had another question from Sophia.
If I may
Sorry.
reply to
Sure, please,
the previous question about, I just want to say that when the need is there, then the product is created. We had that with the virtual tour experiences, for example. Up to 1 year ago, virtual experiences and virtual tours were not common, and yet the need to create led to every museum having their own virtual experiences now, and tours being produced just for virtual. So I think that when the need is there, the product will be developed, and it's going to be developed with a healthy competition. So you can only get better, and you can only provide better services. It's the same. We had this experience in 2012 when we had the economic crisis in the country, where we saw a reshape of the tourism product that was made available to visitors. Mm-hmm. And it was completely diversified from the mass visit the Acropolis and Plaka to the more personalized experience of getting the local feeling and the local touch to every actual experience. So we don't have any concerns of how you can produce further tools and experiences. And we don't think that, you say, for example, we talk about the craftsmen. That doesn't mean that you have to have 100 craftsmen thrown into the tourism and development product phase. Each one should, the important things to highlight is to get the competitive and unique advantages or elements of an industry, of a local business, of an area, and just bring it forth into a tourism spectrum as well. Thank you, Tim.
And I think you very clearly set out that part of your purpose is to stimulate that sort of innovation and to support it. I'm going to bring it back to what the industry needs to be aware that that's taking place. So I'm just going to leave one question for Alexia and Vangelis to consider, maybe Yanis as well, which is the following, and I'll come to it in a couple of minutes. So from Sophia, she asked, based on the conversation, what would be the top 3 sustainability priorities for Athens coming up in the next years? Different countries, different initiatives such as plastic-free cities, hotels. So what would Athens be looking at? And while you think about that, what I'm going to do is launch the next poll, which is about management and metrics, because as Jeremy says, no one's really going to disagree that we need to be sustainable, because the alternative is it all stops in some hideous mess. So we still need to be here in a way we can tolerate and the planet can tolerate in 10 years time. But how are we going to measure progress? So the next poll is about the metrics, and this is Yanis, you are the expert here on this topic. So here we go. Management and metrics. So measuring progress on sustainability is a major challenge for tourism, both public and private sectors. This is certainly something that's been coming up in our discussions, and it's getting the metrics right, getting the tools right that is going to make the biggest difference. So if I can invite the audience to, I'll wait till at least half of you have voted and then close, so another 10 or 20 seconds. And then we'll get into Athens's priorities. But first, what I'll do is invite Yanis to reflect on the result of this poll and how he sees things from a global perspective, helping destinations work on their sustainability. So I'm going to close the poll now. Let's have a look at the results. There we go. So similar, but slightly more in the agree camp, and 1 or 2 in neither agree or disagree. Yanis, over to you. Are you surprised by that result, and any reflections on how to get good measurement, the comparability, the transparency that Alexia was talking about earlier? How do we get that more widely adopted?
Yes, thank you for that. First of all, I'm very surprising with the 2% that says I disagree. That's interesting. If I may, let's say that what we're running right now in Athens, we're running an assessment based on the GSTC destination standard. The number 1 criterion is based on the management that has to be there. If there is no management, I mean, this is now the basic part. And in order to run this and to make it transparent and make it efficient and everything, we have to have matrices, we have to have indicators, we have to have something in place to measure, put goals, put a strategy on, put some action planning, measure the efficiency, and go back and iteration and everything. So for us, it's let's say the most important thing right now when discussing about sustainability, because even you are focusing on the top management or you are focusing on the base of this pyramid of every destination, you have to be able to see how the chain is acting, what is there, how you evaluate the efficiency, the outcomes, and connect that with let's say the person that's going to come. You have to develop some, you have to manage something also in the marketing. So we have to connect this part. I mean, the basics and the, let's say, and the rules and everything together with the local actually regulation, probably together of what's your assets, how you have to develop the to develop more. And then connect with the marketing strategy, the rebranding sometimes, whatever is necessary. We see that in every place. We see that from Japan to Norway and from Athens, let's say, to Costa Rica, is the same thing. And it's becoming, let's say, something that we have to develop also via awareness, not only on the visitor and the training of the visitor, but also, and I'm coming back to the other thing that we're discussing, about what are the 3 major things. I cannot say about others right now because we're running the assessment. But from my personal, let's say, experience and what we have seen based on the stakeholders discussion, the first parts, we see the need from the market, from the industry to upscale, to make the transition, in more sustainable operations, more sustainable purchasing, some initiatives, I mean, about recycling and actually circular economy. It's a very big trend right now. but we have to see also the basic, like I said. I mean, it's not only about just the, let's say, the circular economy. It's also about water management, energy management, also about cultural things related, about the assets of the destination and how we connect this. It's a pyramid. We have to take it as a whole, and we have to, let's say, to create measures and actions of our strategy in each part of this pyramid. This is, I think, it's the first outcome of our work right here in Athens in the last, let's say, 1 month.
Conceptually, that's very clear. I think from talking to businesses, some of whom are quite small, they're saying, what do I need to do? Where are the tools? I don't have time for the philosophy of this. I need to know what to do. So I think just to anticipate another question, I'll invite Sina and Jeremy to reflect on this idea of, training visitors or influencing demand from a destination perspective, because what we're talking about is the ultimate discretionary industry. This is about someone back home in Kansas thinking, I'd like to go to Europe this summer. Where shall I go? Why? What shall I do? So how do we get to those people, and how do we get to the industry that's developing product for those people, and how is that dance between destination and industry working down that transition road? But Alexia Vangelis, I wonder, following Yanis's comments about this sort of conceptual framework of metrics, have you got a feeling, not necessarily a definite commitment now, but what are the areas where you want to see the most measurable progress, so that when you're talking to your community, you can say, look, we've been focusing on this and we've made progress. So what are the kinds of areas where you really want to be able to measure progress in, let's say, the next 3 to 5 years? If you've got any reactions to that, otherwise I'll go to Sina and Jeremy. Vangelis, you look as though you're about to speak. Over to you.
If I may, yes. We are working closely with the municipality of Athens to create a platform to calculate all the metrics that that are related with the SDGs. The municipality is putting very much effort on the reuse of the public space, on increasing the green areas, on reducing and improving the air quality, improving the quality of the air, and reduce the pollution. We have to count in order to know where we want to go. We are trying to build on the innovative system that has the city and needs to grow. And what it's very important is that in order to achieve all the SDGs we are working to, we need to collaborate with all the stakeholders. Yanis talked about the conversation he had and he will keep having with the enterprises and the unions. We need to collaborate. We need to listen to them, and we need to work and walk together. So collaboration is what we are trying to build and invest for further achievements. The city is working on improving what has to do with recycling and circular economy, and we will shortly have some metrics to showcase. And we have the plan for the climate change, which is updated and will be in a large dialogue with all the stakeholders, and hopefully will be approved by the end of the spring. So as you all can realize, it's not only a thing to point out. It's a total work, a collaboration of many stakeholders, our agency, the city, the unions, the enterprises, even universities, that we are working together.
Sure.
Yes.
So when you talk about enterprises, we're talking about the supply chain for tourism, we're talking about hotels, restaurants, we're also talking about waste management, transport systems, the whole thing. And what I'm hearing there is there's a very big focus on environmental climate metrics. And in a funny sort of way, they're the easy ones because we know 1.5 degrees is what we want to stay within, and carbon is the single biggest influencing factor, and parts per million of pollution is also scientifically measurable. I wonder if we can just bridge a little bit to other aspects of sustainability, bringing the community with you, and how that meshes with that, you know, demand dialogue that I referenced to Sina and Jeremy just now. So if either of you'd like to just put your hand up if you've got something to share on that. Jeremy,
I'm sorry. Okay.
Sorry, I do beg your pardon. Alexia first, then Jeremy. Thank you.
I just wanted to comment on the circular economy issue that Ioannis discussed. Our aim is that achieving a circular economy model would actually enable to obtain many of the SDGs that we're talking about, because it's through the circular economy, we're able not only to assure responsible consumption and production, but we're also to address climate action and life on land. And there are so many, and reducing inequalities. So I think that the circular economy model is basically an extension of the sustainability that we're aiming for. This was my comment.
I think that's clear, and circular economy. There's a great deal of dialogue and discussion going on in the Nordic Scandinavian region generally that Sina's been in the middle of. So she may want to reflect on some of that in a second. But over to Jeremy.
Sure, thanks. If you've heard me speak at all in the last year, you'll know that I've been taking issue with this "build back better" phrase that everyone keeps using, because I think it can be a bit empty unless we really define better. It's a nice sentiment. I'm glad we've all been able to agree that we should be better, or at least go forward in a new way. But to me, this means a bit of a reframing of what success looks like. We need to have the right key performance indicators in place across tourism, and for this to be agreed across across destinations and across companies, to have a bit of a shared vision for success. And I think to get to that point, and there's also been this big discussion, and I'm so pleased to see all the great work that Athens is doing, because it has really moved the paradigm, in a direction that everyone's been talking about for a long time, integrating destination management with destination marketing, and starting to ask these really important questions about why do we want tourism, and what is the outcome that we're looking for from tourism? Because I think that the past paradigm was that we wanted tourism for tourism's sake. We wanted growth, we wanted to have more arrivals, we wanted more money, but we didn't really do enough analysis of who those people were. Where is the money coming from? Is it actually being spent in the right way, and is tourism actually an equitable economic driver for communities? So I think it's amazing what Athens is doing, starting to really ask some of these questions. And I think it really complements what Ioannis is saying with this quite holistic view of sustainability. We also need to be measuring the impact of tourism and understanding. I think impact is sometimes even too woolly of a word. To me, it's looking at a cost-benefit analysis of tourism to really understand what are the costs of servicing tourist demand, and do the benefits truly outweigh the costs. And one other comment there, there's been also this paradigm shift of destinations looking for quality over quantity, but I think this terminology is also quite problematic if we're really looking at it from an equity point of view, because who's to say that we were having a pre-discussion before this. You think about a city. Cities are diverse places, and there are diverse kinds of businesses. So shouldn't the tourist economy actually reflect that? If we all of a sudden are going to quality over quantity, and what we really mean is that we want wealthy visitors, does that mean that we just build golf courses and that's it? And what about the shops that cater to backpacker businesses? Who's to say that that any of those market segments are inherently undesirable. So I think it's better that we really look at how do we understand the different costs and benefits and behaviors of those visitor segments and make sure that they're serviced. And I think that's something that Athens is doing an amazing job of really trying to look at, so that ultimately tourism is an equitable driver of the entire city's economy.
Sina, jump in.
Yeah, so I think actually, well, I'm going to go back to some of the points Jeremy made, but I think one question that we haven't discussed enough, not necessarily in this room, but in general, is really the responsibility of destination marketeers and the role of destination marketing in all of this, because we quite often almost it works as a separate thing, and it really, you know, we're marketing places where people live, and I thought that was really interesting from your presentation, Vangelis, also that you see livability and visitability so closely linked in how you approach the tourism development in Athens. And I think this is core because we do have a responsibility to the people and the community of the place that we live. And that's going back to your point, Jeremy, about quality versus quantity. And really that, you know, we represent very, very diverse cities. And so we need to market that city in the image of, you know, in its own image, and not necessarily in the image of the visitors that we want. There was an interesting discussion that I was in last week where someone said, well, what do you do if authenticity in the minds of the visitor is really a fantasy? And I would say, well, as a destination marketeer, you have a responsibility not to feed that fantasy. Because, you know, that's really the point of it, right? That we reflect the communities we have, and we invite the tourism that supports those communities and the priorities and values of them. And so I would also add to that, like, I've seen your articles and Build Back Better, Jeremy, and I do kind of agree it's an easy phrase, but it is also a phrase that sort of, you know, builds a community around it, and it's a vision. And sometimes, you know, taglines are good because they kind of give us direction. And I would say, you know, it's not for us to define what's better. It should be by the community. So go ask, you know. And I think some of the most sort of energizing initiatives that I've seen throughout this crisis period has really been that a new conversation on the role of tourism in our destinations, and inviting locals, communities to actually speak up about it. Because, you know, also I have a background in a DMO, or a past in a DMO, and in the beginning, what we would do is we would go out and we would measure, do they still support tourism growth? But it's the wrong question, because, you know, we're asking them to, you know, support something that's separate from them. So do you still like us? Do you like what we do? What we should be asking is, like, what makes this a better place to live? And how can tourism be relevant and value adding to that? That's what we should be asking them. So.
Hence my comment earlier when I said that we have our This is Athens editors who are literally scouting the city to find these elements that will make the difference and will provide a different marketing, because the destinations have a lot of responsibility on the destination marketing. So it's up on us to actually show the way.
Exactly. If I can add to that,
go ahead, Sina, go ahead.
Sorry, now I'm all warmed up. No, but one quick point to that is also, you know, you do see a lot of destinations sort of in sort of response to a growing demand, sustainable demand. Then you add a list of, oh, this is the green guide to our destination. You can also go to the cultural guide, and you can go to the sort of classic highlight guide and all these things. But, you know, sometimes it's also, you have a responsibility for what you put out there and reclaim that narrative, and then exclude the other narratives. Like, if you don't want them, if they're just feeding a fantasy, or if they're feeding a consumption that you actually don't want and that you don't feel is value adding, then don't do it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, if Amsterdam were in this conversation, they would be addressing, you know, some of the kind of cliche stereotypes of why you go to Amsterdam. That's actually distorting the self-image of the city as regards, you know, why do you want to live there? Why do you want to work there? So I think there's a dynamic there. That we do have another poll which is relevant to this. And Sina, when you were saying people are asking the wrong question, I fully agree. One of the things that came up when we did a survey in Florence a few years ago was trying to gauge comfort level in tourism continuing to develop. What was very clear from that was comfort level was closely correlated with whether or not there's a plan. And if there's not a plan, people get very uneasy very quickly because it's just the market doing its thing. So the last question is about governance. So I'll launch the poll now. And it's a reflection on the time we're in, because we've lost so much because of COVID-19. So we're wondering, will this change anything? So governance and planning. tourism will become better integrated within destinations' overall strategy because of COVID-19. So I think Athens was already doing the work we've been discussing before the crisis, but will this be a stimulus to destinations to do things differently, because we cannot afford to just leave tourism off to the side. It needs to be fully integrated so that it does drive better development within cities and we maximize the benefits it can bring. So again, if I could encourage people to participate as quickly as possible, and then we'll just reflect on that. And what I'll do is I'll invite Yanis to respond first, as you haven't had a word just for a second. So I'll close the poll and show the results. Here we go. So slightly more neutral, nuanced view there. So Yanis and Jeremy, you spend your time talking to destinations and scanning governance mechanisms, and what is the infrastructure that allows decisions to be reached and implemented. Do you feel that COVID is a catalyst for change in integrating tourism more across the piece? So it's not just promotion, to use the cliche, it's incorporated in city planning. So Yanis, then Jeremy.
Yeah, again, I'm trying to find who is disagreeing over there, this small percentage, but I will find this guy. Anyway, first of all, let's say that for sure, COVID situation changed a lot. We know that, we live that, we're still living in some destination this impact. And of course, the planning and governance. I would like to have some more discussion about what is the termination that say better tourism, all right? What is better? What is better? The discussion that Jeremy did, all right? But generally speaking, yes, in our approach, the second fundamental thing is to have all these things inside the strategy, to be in strategy over there in place. They have to take into account the COVID and let's say initiatives like the future of tourism and all these, let's say, pushing to the people that takes, let's say, taking decision. It's something fundamental right now. We see that, and we see that it is more important to come with all this that Alexia said before. I can say from the bottom, we have to discuss with the people. We have to, let's say, rephrase what exactly is governance in a situation that everything is closed, there is no tourism, we just restart everything. So from my perspective, I fully agree, and I like that this agree and fully strongly agree. We have to find how we're going to do it, because it's not a very easy stuff. All right.
I'm going to press on because we've only got a couple of minutes left, but I think that's a very strong endorsement that governance is at the heart of it, and thoughts and governance has been influenced by the crisis. So I'll go on to Jeremy and then invite closing remarks from everyone, and perhaps the closing remarks could be influenced by a kind of more creative, sort of positive reflection, because certainly discussions about sustainability are often about do less of this, stop doing that. But it's clearly, as we've discovered in this conversation, a driver sort of for innovation and creativity, or it should be. So any closing remarks to incorporate thoughts on that? But I'll go to Jeremy first, then Sina, and then our host from Athens. Jeremy.
Controversially, I would maybe answer your poll question as disagree. Not because I don't want tourism to become integral to governance, etc. In fact, I believe that it must, and we must get there. But the way the question is phrased, tourism will become part of, I don't think it works like that. I think that it needs to be much more proactive. It needs to be much more proactive, and will take bold leadership like what Athens is showing. So that there need to be fundamental shifts in the way tourism is managed in order for that to occur. And that means new structures like the Destination Development Agency that Athens has set up. That means new skills and new capacities to exist within destinations to manage 21st century problems. That means that we look at data much differently. if we do those things and tackle those root issues, then it will become. But I think it won't become just by waving a wand. So I think these things are really critical, and these new structures are going to be required if we're going to really shift the mandate. And ultimately, even this question about engaging residents, I agree with Signe wholeheartedly. We're asking the wrong questions, and I also think it's the way it's been treated before has been this sort of participatory, stakeholder consultation rather than ongoing engagement and discussion. So it's not a box to tick. Did we survey the residents? Are they okay? Great, let's move on and do what we want. It needs to be a real ongoing dialogue. And again, that's a different structure, that's a different skill set, and that may require sort of different people with different mandates in order to have that sort of a remit within their organization. And again, I think I am really hopeful that we can get there. I think we must get there if we're going to tackle some of these problems, but I don't think it will just become the reality unless some
Sure.
fundamental.
It won't just happen, and there are no magic wands. Signe.
Yeah.
All right, well, on a finishing note that is more positive, I think one of the sort of my key wishes for the future would be, it's that we stop, as destinations in particular, that we stop talking about sustainability as if it's a competition. And, all the rankings, and I see that quite a lot in destination strategies, like we want to be #1 in this and this ranking of something. And it just is not meaningful in terms of the discussions we are having right now. And so I would say the optimism for me lies in the increase in open sharing that I think we've seen throughout the crisis, and that I would definitely hope for moving forward, because there is so much going on, and there are actually so many initiatives, so much creativity, as you say, so much innovation happening right now on bigger structural levels and on teeny small street levels, and it's really inspiring. And so I think what we don't need is really to reinvent the wheel. What we need is to look at what everyone else is doing, take inspiration from it, and share what we're doing, and continuously learn. As you're saying, Jeremy, about the community as well, it's not a check mark, it's an ongoing thing, it's an ongoing development. So even if you are #1 in some ranking, congratulations, keep going, So that would be my optimistic.
Great. And I think good practice sharing, Signe, is absolutely at the heart of all of this. So very short closing remarks. I'll invite Yanis, then Alexia, and close with Vangelis. So Yanis, any final short reflection?
Yeah, I am very optimistic about Athens. Generally speaking, I'm very glad to be here, because I see that it is the leadership, at least for the country. And I fully agree with all the other people here. It is a new generation now. We are creating via innovation and sharing thoughts, positive thoughts, and I think everything is going to be much better in the next period.
Great. Alexia.
Well, you said to close on a positive note. So I would say that if I would think what word could we use for sustainability so that we don't use it anymore, so that we go past that phase, that would be harmony, because that's what we attain with sustainability. It's a harmony in the destination and the people and the visitors, and how it all falls into place, and how we, it's not about rankings, as Signe said. It's about having everything in order so that it's a pleasant and a prosperous place to live and visit. So that would be my closing remark.
Vangelis.
Well, I'd say that the pandemic crisis, at least for our case, wasn't taken as an excuse for things that wouldn't be implemented. It was like a chance, like an opportunity given to the city to adjust, to evolve, and to transform. It was a catalyst to digital transformation. It raised on our strategy the case of sustainability, which I have to say, it was very high rated before the COVID. So what I'd like to point out before thanking you for this conversation is that our example sets very high the meaning of collaboration. And I mean collaboration with all the stakeholders, with the multi-level government, with the state, with the 2 degrees of local government and with the local economy, even if we're talking about the enterprises, even if we're talking with the local chain of the tourism enterprises, or we're talking about the the ecosystem of innovation. The city is a body, is a living organism, and we are all very vital to cooperate in order to proceed and evolve.
And I think collaboration is such a constructive note to end this conversation on. Thank you very much to Vangelis, Alexia, Yanis, Jeremy, and Sina for your time. Thank you very much to our audience for staying with us. Apologies to 1 or 2 of you whose questions we've not got to. We will do so afterwards. For everyone else, you have a chance to meet some fabulous Athens businesses in Travel Trade Athens early on in April, and we'll see some of you at our City Fair destination promotion event on the 8th of June as well. So thank you very much for an excellent discussion, to be continued. Have a good rest of the day.
You.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.